Hey, everybody, welcome to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. And if you were turning in on our YouTube station or you're watching us on Shaw Television, we're super glad that you tuned in as well. But thanks for joining us today. Today in the Zoom booth with me, I have Island Crisis Care Society. Elspeth Erickson and Stephen Cochran are here to share all of the information that they have about such an important project in our community. Welcome, you guys. How are you?
Thanks.
Great.
We're doing great. Lovely to be here.
It's lovely to be here. Now, some of our listeners may know that we did a recording fairly recently, actually, with you guys. They may have heard some of the information that you guys have with ICCS. However, we had a bum recording. And so we're doing this all over again because your information was so important. We didn't want to lose that in the context. So we're coming back to share all kinds of the same and new information. And thanks again for being with us. Elspeth, can you give us an idea of really what ICCS is and what it does?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Kathy. So Island Crisis Care Society is a local organization that's been around here in the Nanaimo area for over 30 years now.
Oh, wow.
And it's been a while now. And our focus is and always has been on really helping people who have experienced homelessness or precarious housing. We know that's been an issue for a number of years and remains an issue here in Nanaimo, and our aim is to try to address some of the issues that people who have experienced this difficult situation have faced. We started, as I say, about 30 years ago here in Nanaimo, and it was really just started by a couple of folk who were involved in the sector who saw some people in need and wanted to do something. And so they pulled up their sleeves and made it happen. They rented a house and they worked with other folk that they knew just to make it habitable. And they started the very first program of ICCS back then called Samaritan House. And from that simple beginning, the organization has grown, really trying to respond to the growing needs in our community and in our neighboring community of Parksville and Oceanside. So now we've grown and have 12 programs across 7 different sites in Nanaimo and Parksville, a lot offering housing and support programs, trying to meet people where they are as they come in from the difficult situations that they face with homelessness and really other concurrent challenges that they face. Trying to meet them where they are, giving support and wraparound services to really help them transition into a place of peace and stability and recovery.
Elspeth, we're seeing so much more on the homeless front. What is, how can community help to support those that are housing displaced? Like, I mean, there's unfortunately a lot of things that are said for people that are homeless. It's not a comfortable conversation in community when you hear things like that. There's a lot of stigma attached to it. How are you coping with that as a whole wraparound service for even the educational piece for people to stop being so judgmental?
Yeah, it's a very big issue for the community, and it really does affect all of us in the community. And so one of the important imperatives that we have as an organization is exactly to share the realities with the wider community. There is, as you've related, a lot of stigma often involved, where oftentimes people who really aren't aware of the issues and causes of homelessness marginalize people who have experienced homelessness, those people who have got themselves in that situation. And I don't want that situation in my community. But the truth is, and we see it more and more in this day and age, is that all of us really live in a very precarious situation.
Yeah, indeed.
Homelessness is really prevalent across Canada and honestly across the globe as well, North America and really all across the world. More and more people are really just that close to the vulnerability of losing their shelter and their place to stay and the security of a home. Very much so, as we see the housing crisis that we've got here in BC and in Canada, it's a very present reality for lots of people that they can very easily slip into losing that security. And we see that in the demographic of people that come into our programs as well. Again, a lot of the stereotypes would say, oh, it's young people who have gotten involved with things they shouldn't have gotten involved in, and they're ending up in this situation. And definitely there are folk who are in our programs who could fit that stereotype, but
Yeah.
there's also people that you wouldn't expect, including a growing number of older women and older gentlemen
Yes.
who have gotten to a point in their life after contributing to society, having a steady job, who for one reason or another haven't been able to maintain that employment or haven't been able to maintain their housing, and they have nowhere to go. And
Yeah.
so fortunately in our community, our programs and really the network of other organizations that offer these services can try to step in and help. But the services offered, as we know, aren't enough to reach everyone. And that's where the community is really an important element in creating a better situation for everyone. First in awareness and encouraging the development of more resources for people who are in that vulnerable situation, but also in the support to make people feel that they aren't marginalized because they've fallen into hard times.
Absolutely.
And that can make a huge difference in allowing people to have the confidence to move forward.
I know that when in our even on our last interview, we had a little bit of a discussion around us being one paycheck away. Even more so
Absolutely.
now when we look at what's happening in the grocery stores, when we're looking at the gas station, and I think people are really starting to see the bite of what's happening. Many people that own their homes received, exorbitant increases in how much that their house was worth, and along with that the taxes went up significantly in order to support that. And so there are many people that are going to really notice that pinch even more so now. What can we do to help support all people in our community to feel safer about their housing? Is there anything that can be done to kind of elevate that awareness, besides having these, interviews and, talking about it, the
Yeah.
conversation being the most important? What are some of the other ways that we can help contribute to a betterment in all of this?
Well, those are big questions, and they are questions that I think are very topical in this day and
Yeah.
age. I think the positive thing is that there's an awareness, and there's an awareness really across the community and increasingly, and really through all levels of authority and responsibility in provincial government, national government, municipal government, that something has to be done. And I think it's very encouraging to see that efforts are being made. The truth is, though, that likely efforts being made aren't going to happen immediately. And so there is definitely a concern and a crisis. And I think without trying to make it simplistic, because it's a very complex problem and solutions are very complex, but
Exactly.
there is a huge space for community awareness. On the one side, just to be aware and advocate for change and for more resources to be put into the sector to help people who are slipping into that vulnerability. And we see, again, lots of good efforts towards that, and it's very encouraging, but it helps to have more and more voices really advocating for support to people. But I think the other side of it is also just, and you referred to it before, and I'm referring to it again, just the question of the stigma and acceptance, because
Sure.
We never get anywhere as a community if we don't work together. And we know from our programs and from having the privilege of being able to speak to people that have been in our programs that there are some beautiful and tragic and uplifting stories that people have. And learning about those stories and listening to them, I think, helps us all connect and will help us find better solutions. Getting past the fear that's involved in looking at folk that may have become vulnerable and have slipped into needing our programs, getting past the stigma, and really having all of us in the community open our hearts and our minds to try to creatively find solutions for the other human beings that have been affected, because it could at any moment be any of us.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. But it's also the perfect segue, actually, to bringing Stephen into the conversation because Stephen gets to witness so many of these stories. Steve, welcome to the conversation. I'm really delighted that you're here as well. Would you
Thank
mind
you.
sharing with us some of the really cool things that you have going on from a programmatic perspective with, I believe it's called Project Rise?
It is. It
Let's
is.
talk about that a
And
little bit.
I get the honor really to be able to, as Elspeth was saying so eloquently, that you hear the story of the individual who comes through our doors and they say to us, well, times are tough right now, and I've lived this way for a certain period of time. And then they go, this Project Rise thing, tell me a little bit more about it and see what I could possibly do to change my trajectory as to where I'm going and really give maybe a little bit of hope or optimism towards doing something different than just existing. Well, it's almost not even existing, just surviving every day, but now actually thriving and doing something different to change their current situation financially, but
Yeah.
also around their housing, their health, their all these other things where, I mean, we have people in our program from their 20s up to their 70s. And so
Wow.
you could have anybody come through the door with that story, knowing that, as Elspeth said, what got them to that point isn't just drug and alcohol addiction. It's a senior losing a spouse, and now all of a sudden they can't afford their housing because they're going to lose their house.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stories in between. They've been out of the workforce forever, and now they're in fear of trying to go and try to apply that resume to that job where they're not going to give them that opportunity because there's 500 other resumes in that, list of program. And so it makes it almost undaunting. But what we had a meeting just the other day, and I have a new cohort of individuals coming in. We have one operating right now, and I'm excited to know that there's going to be some changes happening in those people's lives.
I love the idea of change happening on one person at a time basis, right? That systemic change happens over time with a lot of people, but every single participant is one step closer to that change. Would you mind sharing, what does the program do? Like, what exactly is the program and how do they get these life skills? How do people get the life skills so that they can put themselves in a new area of life?
Okay, so we don't make it really difficult for them
Uh-huh.
to apply. There's really no criteria other than you're 19 years of age. Um, you come and you attend an information session, then you fill out an application, then you
Mhm.
go through an interview, and then we decide on where's going to be the best fit for them, but also for the program because of the group dynamic that goes on. Now,
Sure.
a lot of the participants call it school, which is kind of fascinating because
I
um,
love it.
I never called it school. They just say they're learning that happens. So it's a 3-month cohort, as we call it. So
Uh-huh.
every 3 months, we're doing a new group of 10. So in the first part of the cohort, the first 4 weeks, they get training from interpersonal skills, computers, budgeting, how to make food, how to prepare food out on your own, interviewing skills, all those kind of things that would help them be successful. We also
Mhm.
give them certification and first aid and food safe that are industry requirements because we want to prepare them for that
Yes.
job experience that comes
Yes.
after. Because if they're not ready for that job experience, well, now I have over 35 work hosts in agencies and community businesses that are willing to say, okay, we're going to take on this person who might be a little green,
Yep. Yep.
not quite ready for the industry standard, but yet we'll take them on. The program pays the employer a little bit of a subsidized wage, so they
Sure.
almost like a probationary period.
Uh-huh.
And we work together, developing each person's plan after they've done their 4 weeks of learning. We're developing them that plan so that the 2 months after, They can have hands-on work experience right out there, making minimum wage, and just being part of the support of the program along with the work host, right? So
Exactly, exactly. And do many of these people continue working in their practicum type sites?
yeah, and in fact, actually, there's individuals who the employer actually pays up.
Oh,
So
wow.
they have a higher standard than the minimum wage, and the employer is taking them on as being like we subsidize up to 20 hours of work for the program, but
Uh-huh.
they're working 40 hours as a typical full-time employee, and the employer now pays that up, and then we invoice them and we give them back the subsidized part, but that's the hope. I want to work myself out of a job, you know what I
Well,
mean?
exactly, right?
So
That's
they
the
don't
whole
have to come
point.
back, you
Of
know?
course, of
That's the
course.
goal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when
And
we do that, the hope is it's on the fine print of the contract that says we're hoping that after they've taken 2 months to train them and get them to that employable level, our hope is that they'll keep them on. And
of
my
course.
current work hosts right now with my 6 in my group have all said yes. They're looking to keep them on after. And
Yay.
they're also going to think of taking another participant on for the next cohort that's coming up in July.
I think that's
That's
amazing.
that's that's when it's really working in the true
Yeah.
sense of collaboration. And
Yes.
then we can kind of go back. You talked about that community piece. That's when I encourage everybody I know to support those businesses who are participating in this program, because their willingness to be a little bit more patient or kind or understanding or forgiving when it's not quite working, they get it. They know that they can call me in a moment's notice and say, hey, Stephen, your person maybe didn't show up today. Let's
Yeah.
get to the bottom of it. We follow through and follow up with it. And then they go, I can be part of this, you know? And then
Yeah.
the participant is more successful and builds the capacity to then go it alone after, because it's not so fearful.
Do you find, I'm curious about how people acclimate to life coming from the street and then into a program and then off to work. Do you have any enlightening shares that might help us understand really the power that these people feel in this process from completing and participating in community?
Well, Elspeth could tell you a little bit of the story of one of our individuals who 2 years ago was followed by Czech News and Sky Ryan. And she was interviewed living very rough on the street.
Yeah.
She was able to be re-interviewed this year and
Oh,
to see herself 2 years prior as to not only what she looked like, but what life was like at that time. The young lady couldn't believe it.
yeah.
She couldn't recognize herself and
Yeah.
say, oh, this is what was going on then. She says, oh, I was totally into my addiction. I was not healthy, all of that. Then fast forward 2 years, and now I'm going to school, and I get to
Yes.
have some optimism and hope in my life, and her face is now lit up. Her energy,
Absolutely.
her confidence, and how she's carrying herself is entirely different. The individuals who used to drink 2 pots of coffee in my first week of school are now not drinking coffee anymore. They're actually
Wow.
drinking water and eating healthy, and their bodies are saying, yeah, I don't need those kind of things anymore, because I've changed this whole thing about how I operate every day.
Yeah.
And to be part of that and to see that's see, you got me
Yeah.
the last time too. I get all choked up when I see I'm part of that, right? And I get to
Stephen's
get
got his
paid.
heart on his sleeve.
Yeah,
But I
I
love
do.
that, right? And Elspeth, I love that you have the same heart on your sleeve as well. We're in a society where there's so much negativity towards people that are struggling, and it's just not
Absolutely.
okay. So, I mean, and I can see the joy in you when as soon as he mentioned this particular candidate, right? So tell us your perspective on all of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Stephen said it really well, and definitely it's a process for folk. I mean, when you think about the folk that enter into our programs, often they've hit what any of us would think of as rock bottom. And it's not just their conditions, their life conditions and their health and their well-being, but it's their confidence,
Oh, yes.
because they've slipped into a situation of despair, usually preceded by a whole lot of adversity, and trauma and experiences that sometimes are unspeakable. And so they've come to the situation and they've been really marginalized. They've been pushed aside by the community and the society that they want to be a part of. So they start from that beginning. And I think very much what we intend to do in our programs is really get past that crisis mode where people are unable to really think beyond the day-to-day and just give shelter and give calm and give that little bit of support so that people can start bit by bit to move forward towards a recovery, towards a progress, towards a well-being. And it takes them a while to get to the stage where they can enter into a program like Project Rise. It really takes a lot of having some peace and having some work towards their own goals. But even so, and I think we've seen it, as Stephen says, in some of the participants in this first round of Project Rise, it's a huge step to go into something that pushes them forward, that pushes them to take another step forward. For some of the folk in our programs, they've been through such difficulty that even taking a step out of their room is a terrifying prospect.
Indeed.
And so to step into a program like Project Rise, where there are expectations and there are certain parameters that need to be fulfilled, is an enormous step. And so, as Stephen said, in the first week of this cohort and in the interviews before the first week, we saw folk that were very withdrawn and very scared. And we ourselves were a little bit worried, goodness, is this going to be successful? Are these folk going to be able to move towards a point where they can go out in the community independently and work? That's a huge thing. And bit by bit, we've seen that happen. So what that tells us, one, is that everybody has potential. And we know that theoretically, but it's absolutely true when we see these folk. And that everyone has hope. I think as human beings, all of us have hope for the future and want to move forward. And that's just as true for the people that are in our programs, despite what they may have experienced in their lives. And what a wonderful thing for all of us to be able to see that hope realized.
Absolutely. And when I think about that, I think about what Gabor Mate said so often, in working with people from the East End of Vancouver, and really that trauma-based kind of envelope that we need to look at people with is to recognize that people are not necessarily in the situation they're in by their own devices, but by the trauma that they have experienced going forward. And I think so many people need to feel like they matter and that there's some sense of belief, that someone has a belief in them when, you know what I mean? I also sort of refer back to the Samaritan House originally from its beginnings, right? And the word Samaritan and what it means to look out for our community as a Samaritan is really part of the essence, I think, and the roots of your organization. At least that's how I see it. Absolutely. I'm curious. I'm curious for both of you, and either, take turns or whoever wants to go first, but what brought you to this work? Because this is pretty hard work. It's hard work, yes, but it's heart work. What took you down this path?
Absolutely. I think you've said hard work, and it's really nice because what I think I'm often asked, what is the unifying force for all of us in our organization? And I really think that word heart is at the core. It's a group of folk who have different professional roles and have different jobs that they need to fulfill. But I think the thing that unifies us as a team in ICCS, and I'm as a relative newcomer to the organization, I'm always impressed by it when I see it, is that there really is that heart, that passion that was at the core of how the organization started, that there's just a care and a concern to help people and help them find their own road towards hope. And that is the unifying factor. So I think that's the passion that brings us to work every day. And it encourages us in those days that, through the ups and downs, that there is a reason for us to be here.
Oh, indeed. Absolutely.
And
Stephen,
for me, Kathy,
I
can only reiterate that, again, new person last year to this organization, but at the end of the day, there is that heart and that passion, that willingness to go that extra mile, to know that it's just not your typical 9 to 5 job that you're going to experience. But I can tell you, with my heart in my hand, that these participants that I have in my cohorts, they motivate me
Oh, for sure.
to do better, to ask more questions, or to get out there and ask, why aren't we dealing with that issue? Or how do we get better support? And so the program actually evolves and develops from their input.
Oh,
And
yes.
they say to me, hey, can we get that person to talk about care of our, say if we got a wound and we were living on the street, and so I've got this guy who comes in and talks to them about doing that kind of stuff, like. But at the end of the day, for me, being in this almost 27 years now, you would think I've burned out by now, but there's those rewards that come along with the invested time. And the participants know that, yeah, I'll give my 100%, but they realize that it's coming from a humanistic standpoint. It's coming from it's not an us and them. It's, hey, we're doing it together.
Yeah.
And we're going through that, not holding hands or giving the free handout. I'm motivating them every day to challenge themselves to do more.
Yeah.
But they're challenging me too, right? So.
Well, and I'm sorry to say this. I have to say this now because to me, it's just very important. I think one of the greatest motivations is the smell of delicious food cooking. And so what I know for sure is that your building is above the Nanaimo Bakery. I think that's where you guys are. And so you get this, I mean, we're going to talk about that. We need to talk about the Nanaimo Bakery and how ICCS is part of that. So I'll leave it to it. But I think food is a good part of keeping people motivated for sure.
But the food aspect, you're not kidding, Kathy.
I know.
The participants are coming, I think, because of the food, because I cook them sometimes breakfast and lunch every day. Yeah. And we break bread together in the kitchen as part of the program, but it's not part of the program, but it's so important about humanizing their experience and about letting them know this is a safe place for them to come. And often they show up and I'd make them pancakes in the morning and they're reading the paper, and it's something they hadn't experienced in years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then, we have the bakery downstairs that we can go down and have, a big
little
good
treat as well. But
we're going to order the treadmill's coming next week.
Well, we all need a treadmill for just COVID weather, regardless of whether you're on top of a bakery or not. But there is something to be, I'm a woman of faith. And so for me, I know that when I think about bringing people together in community, one of the things that stands out is the ability to break bread together, because it means that people are being seen, right? When you break bread with someone, you are breaking the cycle of being alone and bringing in the unity of being together. And I sense that, and I feel that through this conversation it's about bringing people that are otherwise lost, who could go on without a program like this. They may never see themselves as mattering again. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're right. And you've said that so beautifully. It's really the humanizing of all of us and the connecting. And as Stephen said, even in the program, as we've seen people come together and just enjoy that moment and have staff come along. And so we become a big community of all of us just sitting and chatting and being people. And that's what makes the difference in definitely breaking down barriers, but also giving that confidence to the folk that come into the program that, hey, I really do matter. And we're all human, we're all equals, and we can all have a chance.
You remember that one lady that I talked about and seeing herself? She says, I could go through my day and not be noticed ever. And now she's saying, I'm going through my day and I want to be noticed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she is being noticed for what she's doing out there in the community. So she was comfortable with not being noticed, and she could survive, under the radar and nobody, don't look at me. But now it's just like, walking in here and I'm this thing and I'm dressing up certain way, and now I am going to get noticed, and I can talk to that and I can speak to that. I can advocate for others who aren't being noticed. And now they're my marketing and promotion team. They kind of go out
Of
there
course.
and they're telling everybody about their
Yeah.
experience. I'm going, great, that's perfect, right? I can't have a better kind of marketer and promoter than that.
No, no, absolutely. And I think that what you're saying is really important, that confidence, that building of that spirit that has been beaten down for a really, really long time. And to feel like, hey, here I am and I've got something to contribute to community is just so very, very important. And I'm sure that the
Absolutely.
relationships that they have with their family has also been inspired by this, right? And that new connection that comes with, maybe they were respectfully, and I don't see it this way, but I know that many people do. It's like, oh, that's the black sheep, that's the embarrassment to the family unit, right? And now they're coming around and suddenly they've lifted all of that away from them, and people are starting to see them for the light that they actually are. That's not lost in all of the sadness and the
Absolutely.
trauma and the difficulty, right?
They're actually reconnecting when they've burnt the bridges many times over, and recognizing now that decision to make that choice, to make that shift, and that reality saying, yes, okay, I
Yeah.
made my mistakes, but
Yeah.
now I'm owning them, and now I have the capacity to do something with them and about them. And this woman that's in my program, I won't tell you how old she is, but has children and grandchildren,
Yeah.
indicated to me for the first time she was able to see her grandchildren after not seeing them for several years, and is now reconnecting with them for the first time. And that's if that doesn't
That's
get you,
huge, heart-wrenching, especially
yeah,
as a new grandma for myself. I can't imagine not seeing my grandchildren and not having that opportunity to love them up and be with them
yeah.
in that way. So congratulations to her, and to the program. It's taken a lot of people to help rise this beautiful human to be able to be with their family again. I don't want to go back to the bakery right now, because I'm scared that if I do, I'm going to get, I haven't had breakfast yet. So in all fairness, that, it's a nice little drive down to Nanaimo Bakery. I think we need to talk about the social enterprise piece of ICC.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Elspeth. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, again, another new program area and new opportunity for ICCS, and we're super excited about it. So as you've mentioned, ICCS, through its social enterprise, social purpose company subsidiary, Rising Hope Services, Inc., had the privilege to take really a big leap and a leap of faith about a year ago, and move ahead and purchase the Nanaimo Bakery and Cafe. The intent of that really wasn't just to have a bakery. We all like baked goods. It's great, but that really wasn't the intent.
Of course.
The intent really is several-fold. There is, for any nonprofit such as ourselves, the desire to do as much as we can to support our clients and to have
Yes.
flexibility in that. And as Island Crisis Care Society, we've been super supported by some incredible donors for our larger housing programs. We work in close collaboration with BC Housing and with Island Health, and we're so grateful for that. But we also want to add more offerings for our clients that aren't necessarily encompassed within that. Things like Project Rise, programs that are innovative that can really support clients where they are. And so to do that, of course, as with any nonprofit, there's a question of sustainability of funding. So one of the ways to move forward in that, really, in the modern non-governmental organization world, is to move into the realm of social enterprise. That's what we've done. We've got the Nanaimo Bakery and Cafe, which is the first of potentially several social enterprises. And the intent of that is really to support programs such as Project Rise through direct funding. So as a social purpose company, up to 80% of profits can be turned back into program donations. So hopefully, it won't happen immediately, but hopefully within a few years, programs such as Project Rise can be fully supported in that way. And that's super important, because what that provides is a guarantee of sustainability. We know that so many of the clients in our programs and the residents in our housing programs really want to move forward and have that hope.
Yeah.
They may not quite be ready yet, but
Yeah.
they really want to have that. And so to be able to guarantee programs like Project Rise in the future, to give them that opportunity to move forward is an incredible blessing, I think, for all of us. So that's part of the intent. But you know, the bakery and cafe, they've got lofty ambitions, and so they also want to be able to provide a placement for some participants in Project Rise. So they are
Mhm.
one of our first work hosts. They've got a lovely lady working for them right now, and they hope to be able to be a place where folk can be nurtured through, and to be able to have that opportunity to work. So that's reason number 2 for the bakery and cafe, really to be such an innovative part of this Project
Absolutely.
Rise.
Mhm.
And they also have another ambition, which is a little bit less tangible, but it really relates to a lot of the things that we were discussing earlier about community, because
Right.
there's the hope that it can become more than just the sum of its parts, more than just a bakery where you stop and get a really tasty treat or you get a cup of coffee, but that it could serve and grow into being a place of connection in the community. That's very much a part of their vision, that they want to be a place where people across the community from all walks of life can come together and feel comfortable and really connect over a cup of coffee in conversation, potentially to discuss issues and to find solutions. So it's a big ambition and it's an exciting one, but it's one that gets me excited as I hear about it. And I think that they will be on a good road towards that as they grow. So we're excited about it.
Well, and I think you're well on your way of that happening by nature, because Nanaimo Bakery for many years, for many people, was a wonderful stop to
Absolutely.
grab, a delicious cake or, a treat of some kind and have a coffee with a friend. It's quite a large cafeteria style, not cafeteria style. It's not that, that's not the style. It's a warm feeling when you come in. However,
Absolutely.
I kind of got the feeling from Stephen that there's some changes on the horizon on how the bakery works. Would you like to share, Stephen, some of the ways that you've sort of changed that bakery to be more in keeping with your philosophy?
Well, it goes back to what Elspeth was saying about the social enterprise model. And so that when you have a socially responsible organization or even a business who's willing to get involved in those types of things, it changes. It's like it's more than just going to the bakery for a coffee now. It's
Yes.
actually going to the bakery, having a coffee, having a baked good, but you're now actually giving a donation indirectly
Yes.
in that model, if you think about
Yes.
it. And
Yes,
then
for
if
sure.
we can then say to other, like, let's face it, COVID has just impacted tons of businesses all across our community. They're hurting for staff, they're short staffed, everybody's telling me that.
It's
Now
true.
our program and the model we've created here creates an opportunity for a conversation. And it says, hey, if I can subsidize an employee that might get you through to that next payroll, then that's when the program becomes elevated. Because if we create the model here in the social enterprise idea where whatever you give in, it's going back into program, it's going back into new innovative types of things that maybe somebody didn't think about, but it will fill that need and that
Yes.
gap that's there.
Mhm.
That was the whole mission about us doing Project Rise, is that we knew that there was a gap in services that wasn't being provided. So why don't we just create it and now look at others that we can do? You know what I mean? Does that make
I,
sense?
it makes perfect sense to me. It absolutely makes perfect sense. I also like the idea of going back to natural cooking and natural, not using preservatives and things like that. So because it,
Absolutely.
symbolically for me, and this is just my own take on it, symbolically, when we fill things up with preservatives and all of those other things, what we're doing in the human context, right, is making a band-aid situation. But when we go to the root of an ingredient, then we also are going to the root of of the person, and both of them symbolically feed off of each other to create a substantial change in the way not only they are nurturing themselves, but they're able to nurture others. So I'm really
Absolutely.
delighted that that's some of the things that you guys have decided to do with this project. And I just think that people need to go to the bakery. I hear, a little birdie told me that it's like the best recipe for Nanaimo bars ever made in town comes from that bakery. Is that true?
We
We're
think
up there.
so. Yeah, we think so. You know, it is there are lots of new ingredients. The team that are working there are so enthusiastic. So,
Yes.
of course, when the business was taken over by ICCS, of course, there were changes.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
so it's got a whole new menu now. It's a new place. It's an existing business, but it's a new place, but it's an exciting place. There are really innovative recipes, and I must say, very delicious recipes. Stephen and I work upstairs, as you pointed out, but there is a barrier door that we do not open because it would be very dangerous for us.
No kidding.
And really, as you say, that heart to have authenticity in the ingredients and in the delivery. And I think that really permeates the mission and vision of the bakery as well. So, and we're excited that, you know, patrons who used to enjoy the bakery, it's been around for a long time. It also has been around for about 30 years. So
Yeah.
patrons are coming and trying the new goodies and are enjoying them. And lots of new people are coming in as well. And that's what we hope to see, is that all of the community, young, old, new patrons, old patrons, everyone will come together and really rally around the mission of the organization, but also just rally around the very, very good food, both in the bakery and in the little cafe that offers breakfast and lunch. People will really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So please give it a chance. If you
Yes,
are listening,
yes.
go try it. They have free samples, which again are really dangerous. So you can taste things before you buy them, but they are, take it from us who have tried far too many of them already. They are delicious, and we're excited for lots of other folk to try them as well.
Well, I'm assuming that there's a free roll of duct tape at every serve, so you can just sort of paste it on your leg. There's no point in eating it. So delicious. You just paste it on your leg. I normally by now I would have told our listeners that they have to go get a piece of paper and a pen. So I'm going to just jump in right now, do a little bit of that kind of housekeeping stuff, and we'll continue our conversation. If you have just tuned in, it's the first day with my new mouth. I'm not sure if it's working quite yet. It needs a new battery, I think, but nonetheless, if you have just tuned in, you are listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. Very, very delighted to have some incredible people into the Zoom booth with us today. Thrilled to be able to share what's going on in community, particularly as it raises the mission of taking care of people within our community in the way that we need to, and certainly much better. Another way that you can do that, by the way, we're going to talk about donations and finding ways to support community through ICCS in this process. But I also want to talk about some things that are happening within community as we speak right now. Right now, we are preparing for the social event of the season, Shine 2022. We're hoping to raise a whole bunch of money for people within our community with mental health and addictions. And so it's very exciting for us to be bringing to you a program that is like nothing we've ever seen before. Please mark your calendars for September the 17th. Go and get your tickets right now. They're selling out fast. We're looking to have anywhere between 800 and 1,000 people at this event, and 127 different participants, I think right now, are putting on a show of a lifetime. So you're going to want to check it out. You can find out more about it at Together We Shine. Together We Shine.ca. So please make sure that you check that out. Get your tickets right away. I can't wait to see you when you're there. Meanwhile, I also want to talk about some wonderful things that are happening. Episode 7 for Act 3 on Shaw Television is on its way. You'll be watching for it very soon. It will be another show that will hopefully inspire you. So tune into Shaw Cable 4. If you have just tuned into Act 3 on CHLY, thanks for tuning in every Monday. But I remind you to also tune in every Wednesday for Wellness Wednesdays with Teresa Osman. She does a fabulous show as well, so make sure you check her out. And also Dale Harvey is on Thursday mornings for you to watch out for your money, so make sure you check that out too. We are glad that you joined us today. Back to the show, and thanks for being with us. ICCL, Island Crisis Care Society, is doing some mind-blowing things within our community right now, helping people to feel better about themselves every step of the way. Elspeth Erickson, sorry about that, Elspeth, is the executive director, and Stephen
No,
oh, nope, she's not.
Development and Communications Manager, not
I
Executive
beg your
Director. I
pardon,
don't
she's the
want
developer. My
to. Sorry.
apologies.
Hi, Kathy. Sorry, I got you excited.
You got me so excited that I had a Zoom issue. So thanks for not taking that to be too part of the show. I'm glad we continued anyway. Sorry about that, Elspeth.
No worries.
And so as we talk about your role, let's talk about your role. What exactly is it that you do to help community?
Yes, well, my title is Development and Communications Manager, and that actually puts me in the really exciting position that I get to tell the stories. So our little team is really focused on engaging with the community and doing fundraising, communications, but most importantly, really just telling stories. And that's what we always talk about in our team meetings and when we bring new folk on. Because just as we've talked about through this hour, and it's just so wonderful to have the theme kind of coming back at full circle at the end, you know, we believe firmly in the humanity of all of us in community, and that all of us as human beings have a story. And so often the stories of folk who have come in contact with our programs or are part of our programs are lost along the way, both in terms of other people hearing their stories, and even more sadly, sometimes in terms of them valuing their stories themselves. So one of the biggest things that we do in our little team is to try to listen to those stories and let those stories be heard and remind all of us that we're all human beings and we all have a path that we're following, and that path has ups and downs for all of us.
Absolutely.
But we all have that intrinsic value of being human beings that are worth something and deserve to have the voice to have our stories told. So in essence, that's what I think my job is. I get to have the privilege of listening to stories and sharing stories in lots of different ways, and hopefully encouraging those who hear the stories to realize that we are all part of one big picture and that we need to share and understand and care.
Yeah, no, there's no question there that, you know, I've always thought that individual people are the threads to a magical quilt, right? The magical quilt of our society, of our lives, of the people that we share our time with. And we learn from people regardless of what their walk of life is. And in fact, if we think that we know a lot of stuff, we are constantly reminded through the eyes and the conversations with other people, how little we in fact know really about another person's walk. So
absolutely.
Stephen, what's your job?
Oh, wow. The head cook and bottle washer and program coordinator, work facilitator, all it rolled into one. No, it's on the Project Rise coordinator. But it really turns into more than just that, because as Elspeth can tell you, attest to my contribution and my commitment to my group and the programs that I run. It's just not a program. It's a lifestyle that I follow myself and I put into everything that I do. And Elspeth is way too proud. She's awesome at finding the money as well for these programs that we do, because it takes that to roll it, right? So
what a great segue, dude. What a great segue. Speaking of money, how, you know, yes, people can help by going to the restaurant and having a cup of coffee for sure. But let's face it, programs like this can't function when you're in the nonprofit sector without the supportive community. So what does that maybe look like to you? How can people help? How can people show up and support ICCS?
Well, we're always available to chat with people and let them know how they can talk about and advocate with our programs, and advocate about the issues that we're so passionate about. But yes, indeed, people can also give. And we do seek donations directly. We could not survive and we could not offer the programs that we do without having donations. So again, we have in our larger residential programs, we're supported by wonderful partners in BC Housing and in Island Health and many others. We've got support from United Way and other partners, and the Nanaimo Foundation as we move forward in new programming. But in order to provide that innovative programming that can add what people really need and what can often be the special addition that can make a difference between surviving and thriving. We do continuously seek seek funding for our programming. You can do that by going to our website. We're at islandcrisiscaresociety.ca, and you could hit /donate, or you can just go on our menu and see the donate, and folk can be directed straight to a very secure donations portal, where we would be very grateful for any donations that come in. And those donations do go directly to programs, and we do ensure that as donations come in, we are always keeping our ears and our hearts open to what the needs of our clients are, to try to respond in the most effective way to people, to allow them to move towards change and hope.
I think that people need to go to your website, and I think they need to donate. That's a call to action, just saying. I think the call to action is to go and give you $5 goes a long way when it's added with somebody else's $5, and so on and so forth. So really, if you're inspired to do this and interested in helping people in our community, this is the way to get a good start at doing that, for sure. We've come to the end of the program, which is really always hard for me, because I could talk to you guys and talk to you guys and talk to you guys for hours. There's so much more I want to hear about, so much more we want to share. So I'd love to have you back on the show again at another time. But being that we only have a couple of minutes each, just saying, I always love to end with the life lesson. What's the wisdom that comes from all of this? So I wonder, Stephen, if you can go first, and then Elspeth, if you can go afterwards. You know, if you could teach the community something, if you could inspire the community for something in what you've learned in being with ICCS, or in any other way, as it relates to humanity, what might that look like for you?
You know, what great question. Man, give me a little time to think about that one, Kathy.
Don't mean to throw you under the bus. Sorry about that.
That's great. It's great. No, it goes back to what we were talking about before, is about allowing yourself to be open to the opportunity to learn something new about yourself, about what you're doing in the community, and how you're impacting others around you. I live with 2 children with special needs. I've been an advocate for them, and all the people that I work with, I'm an advocate for them too. Because in the end of the day, for me, I'm not looking for any special accolades, and everybody says, oh, how do you do the work? And you must be a special person to do that. No, I just take the time, and I just have a willingness to lend a good ear and lean in a little bit more, and be more inquisitive, to ask more questions and say, why can't we do this? Or why is this still happening? Because at the end of the day, we can all just be better to one another and show kindness and compassion. And for that, we'll be better for it.
I got shivers, man. Very, very cool. Great answer. Elspeth, I'd love to hear your take on this. What is your walk away, take away moment?
You know, we're also impacted by the work that we do and what we see every day. But the thing I think that threads it all together really comes back a little bit to what Stephen said, and what we've been talking about throughout this hour, is that we are all in this together. And as a community, all of us have a face and a value and a humanity, but we also all have hope. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I have every day in the program. Sometimes it looks like a life has reached a dead end, or a person just can't pull themselves up out of the situation that they found themselves in. Again, often outside of their own power. But everybody has hope. And that hope happens best when we pull together as a community, when we reach out and care for one another, and try to reach out and support all of us to move forward. Because when anyone in our community moves forward in hope, that helps all of us as a community move forward in hope. So there is always a space for a second chance. There's always a space for a new beginning. And those things are real and possible and within our hands if we just work together.
I'm gobsmacked by your answers. I'm holding my breath, and it's rare that I have a silence moment. Everybody who knows me knows that to be true. You're absolutely an inspiration to this community. I am delighted to have seen you again on this program. I am thrilled that you're doing what you're doing in community. We should all be very, very proud of the participants and the work that they're doing to elevate their stations in life and to be in another more comfortable way of being. And I would really hope that people listen to your advice and that they call you. So let's one last time give them how people can reach you.
Absolutely. You can reach us at our website, islandcrisiscaresociety.ca, and you can find lots of information about our programs there, but you can also go up to the menu and find a way to donate to our programs to help make a difference. And you can also reach out to us if you email development@iccare.ca. I'll get that message and I will definitely get back to you if I can.
And if
All
Project
right.
Rise inquiries, Kathy, you can go through the website as well. My email is there connected to the drop, as Elspeth was saying, the drop down boxes and all that. So
everybody, you got a call to action. You got something to do. Thank you both for being part of the program today. Super, super glad you guys came. It was wonderful to spend this time with you. And I hope that our community actually does pick up the phone and reach out, whether it's by email or any other way. That's it for Act 3 this time around. We'll see you next time. In the meanwhile, stay safe, look after each other. We are only better when we're doing it together. So go have a cup of coffee. You know where to go. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.
thanks, Kathy.